Comfort is rarely questioned. It feels earned. A stable income, a predictable routine, bills paid on time, weekends intact. There is nothing dramatic about it. And that is precisely the problem. Comfort does not feel like a ceiling. It feels like arrival. You worked for stability. You secured reliability. You reduced volatility. That seems intelligent. But stability without expansion becomes containment. When your needs are met, urgency declines. When urgency declines, ambition softens. When ambition softens, risk tolerance narrows. And risk tolerance determines growth. Not effort, not intelligence, tolerance. Comfort reduces the perceived need to change structure. If the paycheck arrives, if the lifestyle functions, if the pressure is manageable, why disrupt it? That question is rational in the short term, but destructive over long timelines. Because the system does not pause when you become comfortable. Costs rise, assets appreciate, capital compounds. If your structure remains static while the environment compounds, you are not maintaining position. You are slowly losing ground. The cost of being comfortable is invisible early. You don't feel decline. You feel peace, predictability, reduced stress. But predictability also narrows perspective. You optimize inside the role you occupy. You refine skills that increase your value within the system. You rarely build leverage outside of it. Comfort incentivizes incremental improvement. It does not incentivize structural change. Incremental improvement increases income. Structural change increases independence. Those are not the same. If your life functions well enough, you rarely question dependency. Dependency on employer, dependency on market stability, dependency on continued performance. As long as nothing breaks, the ceiling remains invisible. But ceilings are not felt. They are realized later, when someone else's asset base has doubled, when opportunity appears and you cannot move, when volatility arrives and you must protect stability instead of pursue growth. Comfort trains you to protect what you have. Protection feels prudent, but protection without expansion becomes stagnation. Stagnation is not collapse. It is slower separation. While others reinvest aggressively, you refine routine. While capital compounds, you maintain equilibrium. Maintenance feels responsible, but maintenance does not scale. Scaling requires discomfort. Discomfort forces re-evaluation. Re-evaluation creates leverage. The people who escape financial ceilings rarely do it from comfort. They do it from tension, from recognizing that stability alone is not strategy, from understanding that predictability can become a trap. The trap is subtle. You become good at surviving, good at budgeting, good at optimizing. But survival optimization is not wealth creation. Wealth creation demands exposure to uncertainty. Ownership requires risk tolerance. Compounding requires margin. Comfort compresses all three. If your life feels fully stable, fully optimized, fully predictable, ask a harder question. Is this stability expanding or containing you? Because comfort is not failure, it is limitation. And limitation compounds quietly when left unexamined. Comfort does something subtle. It recalibrates your standards downward while making you believe they are rising. When your life becomes stable, your goals begin to shrink to fit that stability. You stop asking what is possible. You start asking what is reasonable. Reasonable is safe. Reasonable fits inside your current income. Reasonable protects your current routine. Reasonable does not disturb equilibrium. Equilibrium feels intelligent. But equilibrium inside a growing economy is passive decline. If your structure does not expand, relative positioning shifts. Others accumulate assets. Others reinvest returns. Others compound. You maintain. Maintenance is invisible stagnation. It feels responsible. It feels disciplined. But it rarely builds leverage. Leverage requires friction. Friction requires discomfort. Discomfort threatens comfort. So most people avoid it. Comfort trains you to preserve what exists. Preservation is not expansion. Preservation is defensive. Wealth creation is offensive. When you are comfortable, you negotiate for small improvements. Slightly higher salary, slightly better title, slightly better lifestyle. All linear upgrades, none structural. Structural change looks disruptive, reducing expenses when you could upgrade, redirecting surplus when you could celebrate, taking calculated risks when stability feels good. The system prefers you comfortable. Comfortable workers do not challenge structure. Comfortable earners do not aggressively accumulate. Comfortable consumers sustain demand. Comfort creates predictability. Predictability benefits institutions. Unpredictability benefits owners. This is not conspiracy. It is alignment. If you are comfortable inside the system, you are likely reinforcing it more than redesigning your position within it. Redesign requires tension. Tension forces reallocation. Reallocation builds assets. Assets build independence. Independence reduces ceiling. Most people never redesign. They refine. They improve performance. They optimize habits. They increase efficiency. Efficiency inside the wrong structure deepens the trap. You become better at sustaining comfort, better at protecting routine, better at avoiding volatility. And volatility is where leverage is created. Volatility carries opportunity, but opportunity requires readiness. Readiness requires margin. Margin requires restraint. Restraint is uncomfortable when life feels good. So expansion of lifestyle continues. Bigger baseline, higher fixed costs, more commitments. Each added obligation tightens the ceiling. Each fixed expense narrows flexibility. Each lifestyle expansion increases required income. Required income reduces optionality. Optionality is freedom's foundation. The cost of being comfortable is reduced ambition for structural change, reduced ambition for ownership, reduced urgency to compound. Over long timelines, that reduction compounds more than you realize, not into collapse, into limitation. A financial life that is stable but capped, secure but constrained. Comfort does not destroy progress. It slows it just enough that you mistake motion for growth. And that miscalculation is expensive over decades. Pause for a second. If you're still listening, it's probably because this didn't feel exaggerated. That's intentional. If this way of thinking matters to you, like the video, subscribe. We'll keep going deeper. The longer you remain comfortable, the more expensive change becomes. Early in your career, compression is easy. You can lower expenses, relocate, take calculated risks, reallocate income aggressively. There is flexibility. But comfort hardens over time. You upgrade housing, you upgrade transportation, you increase recurring commitments. Each upgrade feels incremental, none feel structural. Structure changes quietly. Your baseline rises. Your required income rises. Your tolerance for uncertainty falls. When baseline rises, freedom shrinks, not dramatically, gradually. Gradual shrinkage is rarely noticed. This is where the compounding layer appears, not compounding of wealth, compounding of dependency. Higher fixed expenses require higher stability. Higher stability reduces risk tolerance. Lower risk tolerance reduces ownership. Reduced ownership limits compounding. Over time, the path narrows. You cannot reduce income without stress. You cannot pivot without compression. You cannot take advantage of volatility. Volatility becomes threat, not opportunity. Meanwhile, those who accepted earlier discomfort benefit from expanding leverage. They built margin before expansion. They accumulated assets before upgrading lifestyle. Their baseline remains controlled. Their optionality expands. Optionality compounds. When you can say no, you negotiate better. When you can wait, you invest strategically. When you are not pressured, you think clearly. Clarity produces better allocation. Better allocation produces stronger assets. Stronger assets reduce required effort. Reduced required effort increases control. Control is what comfort promised, but rarely delivered. Comfort delivers predictability. Control delivers autonomy. Autonomy requires the ability to absorb instability. Absorbing instability requires margin. Margin is expensive when your baseline is high, because reducing baseline later feels like regression. This is why many high earners feel trapped. Income is strong, lifestyle is strong, obligations are stronger. The ceiling is invisible but firm. Breaking that ceiling later demands sacrifice that feels disproportionate. Selling assets, downsizing lifestyle, rebuilding runway. All of it feels like moving backward even when it is strategic. The earlier the discomfort, the cheaper it is. The longer the comfort, the more rigid the structure becomes. Rigid structures resist change, and resistance increases cost. Financial cost, emotional cost, identity cost. This is the real price of comfort, not lost income, lost flexibility, lost leverage, lost time for compounding. Time compounds everything. If you compound ownership, it builds wealth. If you compound dependency, it builds ceilings. The system will not interrupt your comfort. It will reward it. It will promote it. It will stabilize it. Because stable participants are predictable. But predictable positioning rarely produces exceptional freedom. It produces steady containment. And containment over decades becomes indistinguishable from limitation. Comfort is not failure. It is a plateau. And plateaus feel safe until you realize how long you've been standing still. At some point, the question changes. It is no longer, am I comfortable? It becomes, what is this comfort costing me? Not emotionally, structurally. What opportunities have you declined because stability felt too important? What risks have you avoided because volatility felt unnecessary? What ownership have you delayed because your income felt sufficient? Sufficiency is dangerous, not because it is wrong, because it removes urgency. And urgency is often the catalyst for structural change. Without urgency, you refine. You do not redesign. You optimize salary. You do not expand ownership. You improve lifestyle. You do not increase leverage. Leverage is what removes ceilings, not income. Income supports the present. Leverage reshapes the future. When you are comfortable, you trade upside for predictability. Predictability reduces stress, but it also reduces growth velocity. Growth velocity determines separation over decades. Small differences in allocation become massive differences in autonomy. The person who reinvests early benefits from exponential acceleration. The person who consumes early benefits from temporary satisfaction. Temporary satisfaction compounds into higher baseline. Higher baseline compounds into dependency. Dependency compounds into constraint. Constraint limits decisions. Limited decisions limit strategy. Limited strategy limits wealth creation. This is why comfort is expensive. It charges you in missed compounding. It charges you in delayed ownership. It charges you in reduced optionality. And the bill arrives later. Not in year 1, not in year 3, in year 15, when peers with similar starting points have built asset bases that move independently of them. At that stage, catching up requires compression. Compression feels painful because it demands lowering lifestyle that has already normalized. Normalization is powerful. You adapt quickly to upgrades. You rarely adapt quickly to reductions. So instead of compressing, most people maintain. They protect equilibrium. They continue optimizing inside the same ceiling. And ceilings do not feel restrictive until ambition expands beyond them. By then, the structure is rigid. The cost of change is high. The psychological resistance is higher. There is another layer. Comfort shapes identity. You begin to identify with stability, with predictability, with being responsible. Risk begins to feel irresponsible. Ownership begins to feel uncertain. Uncertainty feels threatening. But uncertainty is where leverage is born. Ownership is built in imperfect conditions. Compounding rewards those willing to endure short-term instability. The people who escape ceilings rarely do it from deep comfort. They do it from intentional discomfort, from disciplined compression, from redirecting surplus into assets instead of upgrades. Comfort is not the enemy. Unexamined comfort is, because unexamined comfort becomes permanent structure. Permanent structure becomes permanent ceiling. The cost of being comfortable is not collapse. It is limitation. And limitation compounds quietly until it feels like destiny. But ceilings are not destiny. They are constructed. And what is constructed can be restructured. Comfort is not something to eliminate. It is something to question. There is nothing wrong with stability, nothing wrong with predictable income, nothing wrong with enjoying what you've built. The danger is unconscious expansion. If every raise becomes a lifestyle upgrade, you are not increasing freedom, you are increasing baseline. If every stable year becomes a reason to add obligations, you are not building leverage, you are building dependency. Dependency does not feel heavy at first. It feels normal. You adapt to new expenses. You normalize higher standards. You integrate commitments into identity. Identity makes ceilings invisible. If you identify with your current structure, you will protect it, even if it limits you. Protection feels responsible, but protection without expansion creates stagnation. Expansion without structure creates fragility. The balance is deliberate. The solution is not extreme deprivation, it is intentional allocation, keeping fixed costs controlled while assets expand, allowing lifestyle to grow slower than ownership, building margin even when things feel good. Because the best time to build leverage is when you do not urgently need it. The best time to reduce pressure is before pressure appears. The best time to question comfort is while it still feels safe. Most people wait for discomfort to force change. Layoffs, market shifts, economic contractions. That is reactive adjustment. Reactive adjustment is expensive. Proactive compression is strategic. Reducing baseline voluntarily, redirecting surplus consistently, building ownership quietly, letting compounding do the work that effort cannot. Over time, the difference becomes visible, not in lifestyle first, in posture, in negotiation, in decision-making clarity. You stop protecting income at all costs. You start protecting leverage. Leverage removes ceilings, not instantly, gradually. But gradually is enough. The cost of being comfortable is paid in missed compounding, missed leverage, missed autonomy. But it is reversible if examined early. Comfort should support expansion, not replace it. If this reframed how you see stability, subscribe. Like this if it clarified something.